Okay, welcome again to Western Tradition Learning Center. In case you haven't been on the channel before, this is a channel in which I'm going to do literature and maybe other things too, science and some math, but I'm going to make videos to help students, young, old, middle age, whatever, all ages really, but mostly young people. Where I'm going to make videos to help you understand, academic subjects and really Western culture. What I like of Western culture. So I'm going to do what I enjoy. Have fun with this, and hopefully you'll have fun too and learn something in the process. So today we're going to go over the Pardoner's Tale. Now, the Pardoner's Tale, and again, I'll post this PDF at the bottom of the video in case you want to see it. The Pardoner's Tale is from a larger work called the Canterbury Tales. Yesterday I made a video of from the Decameron, Federico's Falcon, and that's from a larger work, right? So Federico's Falcon is from the Decameron. Pardoner's Tale is from the Canterbury Tales. And in fact, Chaucer, who wrote this, Geoffrey Chaucer, was inspired by Boccaccio, who wrote the Decameron, which is, basically stories within a larger story. So anyway, I mean, the Pardoner's Tale is one of my favorites. There are many tales. Chaucer never finished this larger work. He died before he could actually finish it. But the stories that he left us are wonderful. They're fun. And this one is one of my favorites because it's about greed and it's creepy and, there's a little bit of mystery here. So, anyway. So, now I have some things highlighted here. An exemplum is a short anecdote, I should say, or story, that illustrates a particular moral point. And that's what the Pardoner's Tale is. It's a story about not being greedy. There's a lesson here. Not being greedy. And to the right here, if you look, it says radix malorum est cupiditas. And that means the love of money is the root of all evil, and that's from Latin. And it's from the Bible. And it's telling us that, wanting money above all things can make us do bad things, which is evil. So it's a good lesson, and it's interesting, and it's very ironic. Now, the guy who's telling us this story is a guy called the Pardoner. Now, a pardoner was an actual position. All right, now I'll read this to you. In the medieval church, the Catholic Church, a pardoner was a clergy member who had authority from the Pope to grant indulgences, which are certificates of forgiveness for sins to people who showed great charity. In practice, however, many pardoner's, such as Chaucer's Pilgrim, because I'm not going to explain the whole thing, the whole story there, because I don't want to make this video excessively long, they were unethical and sold their certificates to make money for the church or themselves. The pardoner is one of many people. They're called pilgrims. They're going on a pilgrimage to Canterbury, to the shrine of St. Thomas Becket, who is a real saint. And he was a martyr. He was killed by the King of England. And you can look into all this if you'd like. It's actually very interesting. And they were going there to pray at his shrine to ask for his intercession, which is typical of Catholics and Orthodox. And anyway, they're all going there, and they make this deal that they have to tell stories on the way there and on the way back. And that's basically the story of the Canterbury Tales. But you can look into that if you want. So I'm just going to go over the tale itself. I'm sure if you're doing the Canterbury Tales, you'd know the basic setup. And I can always do a video on, the Canterbury Tales itself. But so a pardoner was supposed to forgive sins, if you gave money. And some of these pardoner's were crooks, and they would take the money, and they didn't care if your sins were forgiven or not. So they just took the money. They did it for money. So in the beginning, there's a thing called a prologue, and that's like an introduction of the character, and then he tells a story. Now, this is not the full prologue, but it's some of the prologue, and it's funny. And of course, this is a poem, so it rhymes. and I'm going to read it to you, okay? This is the prologue, and then we'll get into the tale. My lords, he said, in churches where I preach, I cultivate a haughty kind of speech, and ring it out as roundly as a bell. I've got it all by heart, the tale I tell. I have a text that always is the same, and always has been since I learnt the game. Old as the hills and fresher than the grass, radix malorum est cupiditas. I preach, as you have heard me say before, and tell 100 lying mockeries more. I take great pains in stretching out my neck. To east and west I crane about and peck, just like a pigeon sitting on a barn, my hands and tongue together spin the yarn. And of course a yarn is a tall tale, a lie basically, an exaggerated story. And all my antics are a joy to see. The curse of avarice and cupidity, avarice is greed, cupidity is desire, is all my sermon, for it frees the pelf. Out come the pence, the money, and specially for myself. For my exclusive purpose is to win, and not at all to castigate their sin, meaning to criticize their sin. Once dead, what matter how their soul may fare? They can go blackberrying for all I care. Notice how the lines rhyme, right? Win sin, fair care, pelf myself. And thus I preach against the very vice I make my living out of, avarice. And yet, meaning avarice. And yet, however guilty of that sin myself with others, I have power to win them from it. I can bring them to repent, but that is not my principal intent. And there he is, the pardoner. And the peasants are bringing him money so they can get their sins forgiven, right? And this is a satire, too. Chaucer was making fun of these kind of people, right? That's what he was doing. He was having fun. Covetousness is both the root and stuff of all I preach. That ought to be enough. Well, then I give examples thick and fast from bygone times, old stories from the past. A yokel mind, meaning a rustic, a peasant, country person. A yokel mind loves stories from of old, being the kind it can repeat and hold. What? You think as long as I can preach and get their silver for the things I teach, that I will live in poverty from choice? That's not the counsel of my inner voice. No, let me preach and beg from kirk to kirk, and never do an honest job of work. No, nor make baskets like St. Paul. That's a biblical allusion, because St. Paul used to make baskets. To gain a livelihood, I do not preach in vain. There's no apostle I would counterfeit. I mean to have money, wool and cheese and wheat, though it were given me by the poorest lad or poorest village widow, though she had a string of starving children, all agape. No, let me drink the liquor of the grape, meaning wine, and keep a jolly wench in every town, a girlfriend. But listen, gentlemen, to bring things down to a conclusion, would you like a tale? Now as I've drunk a draught of corn-ripe ale, by God it stands to reason I can strike on some good story that you all will like. For though I am a wholly vicious man, don't think I can't tell moral tales. I can. Here's one I oft preach when out for winning, blah, 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 meaning, money. Now, you can tell here that the pardoner himself, right? What's interesting is he reveals that he's really greedy. Okay, he tells his audience that he's greedy, and then he's going to tell them a tale against being greedy, but yet he's greedy. So he's a hypocrite, right? He's a typical hypocrite. They're in every religion, okay? They're in every single religion, without exception. And not just in religions, they're all over the place. So it's someone who preaches something and then doesn't practice it, right? I mean, there's a million hypocrites. They're in colleges, they're in schools, they're in your job, they're in your family, whatever. I don't have to go into it. But anyway, the pardoner himself, he is a hypocrite. He likes the money by robbing people, telling them they'll be forgiven of sins, but he doesn't care if they're forgiven of sins. He doesn't care what happens to them after death. All he cares about is the money. Anyway, so he's going to tell us a story now about not being greedy. So let's enjoy it. It's one of my favorites. The Pardoner's Tale. It's of 3 rioters I have to tell, who long before the morning service bell were sitting in a tavern for a drink. And as they sat, they heard the handbell clink before a coffin going to the grave. One of them called the little tavern knave and said, "Go and find out at once, look spry, whose corpse is in that coffin passing by. And see you get the name correctly, too." Sir, said the boy, no need, I promise you. 2 hours before you came here, I was told. He was a friend of yours in days of old. And suddenly last night the man was slain, upon his bench face up, dead drunk again. There came a privy thief, they call him Death, who kills us all round here, and in a breath he speared him through the heart. He never stirred, and then Death went his way without a word. He's killed 1,000 in the present plague, and sir, it doesn't do to be too vague. If you should meet him, you had best be wary. Be on your guard with such an adversary. Be primed to meet him everywhere you go. That's what my mother said. It's all I know. So these three rioters, who are drunks, basically, rowdy people, revelers, drunks, they don't work, you know. There's a lot of people like that today. They want free stuff without working. That's what these guys are, right? And they're there drinking, and it's the morning. It's early in the morning, and they're drunk. And they're in this tavern, and a funeral procession comes by, and they see it out the window. And they ask the little guy that works there, like a busboy, and they say, what's going on? And he says, well, a guy died, and guess what? He was a friend of yours. And he was killed by this plague, meaning a disease that's going around. Now, of course, we know that in the Middle Ages there was the famous Black Plague that killed a lot of people, and that's what he's really referring to. But there were instances of other outbreaks of plague. You know, London had an outbreak of plague, and then other parts of Europe as well, at different times. There was one, I think, in the 1300s, one in the 1600s. So it's just basically a disease that, I mean, we know now the bubonic plague, but there were other outbreaks of different diseases. Now, I want you to notice right here, he says that there came a privy thief, they call him Death, and Death is capitalized. In this story, Death is personified, which means that Death is treated as a person. Personification is when we treat something that's not a person as a person, and we give it human qualities, right? So the little knave says that Death came and took him. Now, Death's not a person, but they treat him as such in here, okay? Now, also, this story, as it says here on the right, I like this. It says, many characters in moral stories are allegorical. That is, they stand for abstract ideas such as virtue and beauty. Identify the allegorical character, blah, blah, blah. So they get into this whole thing about allegory. And that's true. This is allegorical because certain characters represent certain things. And we'll discuss it later. See if you can pick it out as we go through. The publican joined in with, there was somebody else in the tavern. By St. Mary, what the child says is right. You'd best be wary this very year. This very year he killed in a large village a mile away. Man, woman, serf at tillage. Page in the household, children, all there were. Yes, I imagine that he lives round there. It's well to be prepared in these alarms. He might do you dishonor. Huh? Guard's arms. The rioter said, is he so fierce to meet? I'll search for him by Jesus, street by street. God's blessed bones, I'll register a vow. Here, chaps, the three of us together now. Hold up your hands like me, and we'll be brothers in this affair, and each defend the others. And we will kill this traitor Death, I say. Away with him as he has made away with all our friends. God's dignity tonight. So somebody else tells them about how this village got wiped out by the plague, and then the rioters decide that they're going to go after Death. They're going to kill Death. Now, how could you kill Death, right? That's ironic and it's funny. But they're going to go after Death. That's what they say. Well, they're drunk anyway. And then they make a pledge that they're going to be brothers and they're going to help each other. Well, we'll see how that goes. They made their bargain, swore with appetite, these three to live and die for one another, as brother born might swear to his born brother. And up they started in their drunken rage and made towards this village which the page and publican had spoken of before. Many and grisly were the oaths they swore, tearing Christ's blessed body to a shred. If we can only catch him, Death is dead. So they're drunk. They're on their way to find Death. They're headed towards this village that they say, got wiped out. And they are using the Lord's name in vain, which to Catholics and Orthodox is very offensive, to use Jesus' name in a bad way. So, and that's what they do. And the author is letting us know that these guys are not nice. So do not feel bad for them at all. When they had gone not fully half a mile, just as they were about to cross a stile, which is a stairway to get over a fence, they came upon a very poor old man, who humbly greeted them, and thus began, God look to you, my lords, and give you quiet. To which the proudest of these men of riot gave back the answer, What, old fool? Give place. Why are you all wrapped up except your face? Why live so long? Isn't it time to die? Totally rude. So what happens is they're on their way, right, to this village where supposedly everybody got wiped out. And they see this old man, and he's covered really from head to toe except for his face. And he says hello to them in a nice way. God look to you, give you quiet, meaning God give you peace. And they answer back, they call him a fool. They tell him to get out of the way. They said, why are you still alive? You should be dead because you're old. Totally rude. Well, we'll see how that goes. The old fellow looked him in the eye and said, because I never yet have found, though I have walked to India, searching round village and city on my pilgrimage, one who would change his youth to have my age. And so my age is mine and must be still upon me for such time as God may will. Not even death, alas, will take my life. So like a wretched prisoner at strife, within himself I walk alone and wait about the earth, which is my mother's gate, knocking with my staff from night to noon, and crying, Mother, open to me soon. Look at me, mother, won't you let me in? See how I wither flesh and blood and skin. Alas, when will these bones be laid to rest? Mother, I would exchange, for that were best, the wardrobe in my chamber standing there. So long for yours, I, for a shirt of hair to wrap me in. She has refused her grace, whence comes the pallor of my withered face. So this guy, this old man, which is a picture right here, but we have to read it a little bit more, but there he is. They disrespect him, the three rioters. And then he goes on and says how that he's old and he has traveled all the way to India and back. Now he's in England. This story takes place in England, right? Because the Canterbury Tales is written by a British man. So this story takes place in England, and they're on the way to, not the rioters, but the people telling the story, like the Pardoner, they're on the way to Canterbury. But the rioters, are British, because this is a British tale. And this old man here says that he wants to die. So he's like excessively old, and he keeps pounding on the earth to let him in, for his bones to rest in the earth, because he's so weary of living. So he's kind of strange, because we don't really know who he is. I mean, who is it that he can't, who is he that he can't die? And so there's a little bit of mystery here and some allegory, right? What could he possibly represent? What could he possibly be symbolic of? Well, we'll see at the end. Now, this old man here kind of chastises the three rioters for being rude to him. But it dishonored you when you began to speak so roughly, sir, to an old man, unless he had injured you in word or deed. It says in Holy Writ, meaning the Bible, as you may read, thou shalt rise up before the hoary head, meaning gray or white hair, and honor it. And therefore be it said, do no more harm to an old man than you, being now young, would have another do when you are old, if you should live till then. And I love that line. I highlighted it. And so may God be with you, gentlemen, for I must go whither I have to go. And he's about to leave. Now, but they don't let him leave. Let's see what happens. But let me just say something. So he says to them, you really disrespected me. I'm an older man. You should have been polite to me. And then he says, you should treat people the way you want to be treated when you're old. And then he says, if you live till then. Now, that's a little bit of foreshadowing, right? And the foreshadowing in a story is something that tells us what's going to happen in the future. It's a clue about what's about to take place. Okay? So we'll see. So there he is pointing, and there's a little trail, right, that he was coming down. Now, the three rioters, one of them is a gambler. And it says now, by God, the gambler said, you shan't do so. You don't get off so easy, by St. John. I heard you mention just a moment gone a certain traitor, Death, who singles out and kills the fine young fellows hereabout. And you're his spy, by God. You wait a bit. Say where he is, or you shall pay for it. By God and by the Holy Sacrament, I say you've joined together by consent to kill us younger folk, you thieving swine. So now, one of the rioters thinks that, this old man works for Death. Well, I'll let you decide that later, and he says, you're not going anywhere. Now, the old man says, well, sirs, he said, if it be your design to find out Death, turn up this crooked way, meaning a path, towards that grove, meaning a bunch of trees. I left him there today, under a tree, and there you'll find him waiting. And he isn't one to hide for all your prating. You see that oak? He won't be far to find. He won't be far to find. And God protect you that redeemed mankind. I and amend you. Thus that ancient man. That's what he says. So the old guy says, "Oh, you're looking for death? Oh, he's up that trail there in the grove of trees. I just left him there. Go up there." So they leave him, and they forget all about accusing him, and they leave, and they go up there, the three rioters. But we'll see what happens. At once the three young rioters began to run and reached the tree, and there they found a pile of golden florins. Now florins are beautiful gold coins on the ground. New coin, 8 bushels of them, as they thought. No longer was it death those fellows sought, for they were all so thrilled to see the sight. The florins were so beautiful and bright that down they sat before the precious pile. The wickedest spoke first after a while. "Brothers," he said, "you listen to what I say. I'm pretty sharp, although I joke away. It's clear that fortune has bestowed this treasure to let us live in jollity and pleasure. Light come, light go. We'll spend it as we ought. God's precious dignity. Who would have thought this morning was to be our lucky day?" Hold it right there. So they leave the old man, they go up the grove, and they see under these trees a huge pile of gold coins. And now, of course, immediately they forget about the fact that they're on this quest to find death and kill him. And you'll see they're plotting now something something else, because as soon as they found money, that's it, they changed their attitude. Now, the wickedest talked about this. And by the way, I highlighted the word fortune. And notice that it's capitalized. And this is allegory here, okay? Fortune is good luck. And that's really an abstract idea. That's nothing really you and I could put our fingers on, right? Abstract means that it's not clear, nothing tangible, right? Nothing we can put our hands on. If I said, "Show me good luck," you couldn't find it for me. But if I said, "Show me a lamp," you could show me a lamp, but you can't find me good luck, or you can't find me love. You could find me the result of good luck or the result of love, but to find the actual thing, you couldn't do it because they're abstract. So fortune, just like death there, is treated allegorically, meaning it's symbolic of something, right? Death, of course, is when the body stops functioning and the soul leaves the body. Fortune is good luck, a person who gets all the breaks and has prosperity and good health and love and blah, 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 blah. So this wicked rioter says that fortune has been good to us today. Now, also, in ancient times, fortune was believed to be a goddess. In ancient Rome, Fortuna was her name. So this is also a personification as well, okay? Now, he's saying, wow, we're going to have all this money, we can relax, and we can just have a good time now, and we don't have to worry. If one can only get the gold away, he continues to say, back to my house, or else to yours, perhaps, for as you know, the gold is ours, chaps. We'd all be at the top of fortune, hey? But certainly it can't be done by day. People would call us robbers, a strong gang, and so our own property would make us hang. No, we must bring this treasure back by night, some prudent way, and keep it out of sight. And as a solution, I propose, we draw for lots and see the way it goes. The one who draws the longest, lucky man, shall run to town as quickly as he can to fetch us bread and wine, but keep things dark, while 2 remain in hiding here to mark our heap of treasure. If there's no delay, when night comes down, we'll carry it away, all 3 of us, wherever we have planned. Now, so this guy's really wicked, and there's a reason for this. So he says, let's draw lots, right? When you get different size sticks and you put them in your hand. And so he says, two of us will stay here, and one of us will go to town to get food and drink. And then when he comes back, the 3 of us will, bring the treasure back to one of our houses by night. Well, that's not what he's really planning, but whatever. Anyway, they draw lots, and the youngest one has to go to the town. He gathered lots and hid them in his hand, bidding them draw for where the luck should fall. It was a setup, by the way. It fell upon the youngest of them all, and off he ran at once towards the town. Now the youngest one left, and the other two are there. As soon as he had gone, the first sat down and thus began a parley, meaning a discussion, with the other. You know that you can trust me as a brother. Now let me tell you where your profit lies. You know our friend has gone to get supplies, and here's a lot of gold that is to be divided equally amongst us three. Nevertheless, if I could shape things thus, so that we share it out, the two of us, wouldn't you take it as a friendly act? But how, the other said. He knows the fact that all the gold was left with me and you. What can we tell him? What are we to do? Is it a bargain, said the first, or no? For I can tell you in a word or so what's to be done to bring the thing about. Trust me, the other said. You needn't doubt. My word, I won't betray you. I'll be true. You never trust a thief. So one guy says to the other one, listen, if we get rid of this young guy, we could split it 2 ways, not 3 ways. And the other guy says, well, he knows. He knows we have the gold. He says, don't worry, leave it to me. See what he says. Well, said his friend, you see that we are 2, and 2 are twice as powerful as 1. Now look, when he comes back, get up in fun to have a wrestle. Then as you attack, I'll up and put my dagger through his back, while you and he are struggling as in game. Then draw your dagger too, and do the same. Then all this money will be ours to spend. Divided equally, of course, dear friend. Then we can gratify our lusts and fill the day with dicing at our own sweet will. Thus the 2 miscreants agreed to slay the third and youngest, as you heard me say. So they're plotting to kill him as soon as he comes back, the youngest one, when he comes back with the drink and the food. They're really wicked. And a miscreant, by the way, is an evildoer and a villain. Now listen, don't feel bad for the youngest one and think, oh no, he's going to get killed when he comes back. He's just as bad as them. Listen, the youngest, as he ran towards the town, kept turning over, rolling up and down, within his heart, the beauty of those bright new florins, saying, Lord, to think I might have all that treasure to myself alone. Could there be anyone beneath the throne of God so happy as I then should be? And so the fiend, our common enemy, was given power to put it in his thought that there was always poison to be bought. And with that poison he could kill his friends. 2 men in such a state the devil sends thoughts of this kind, and has a full permission to lure them on to sorrow and perdition. For this young man was utterly content to kill them both, and never to repent. Now, notice they again capitalize fiend, and the fiend here is the devil, which really is a symbol of evil, right? So evil tempts this young man to kill his 2 friends, and he doesn't care. Now the other 2 want the money so they can just, get fat and, be lustful and just drink and eat and do nothing all day and be lazy bums. Well, he wants it for the same reason, the young guy. And the devil has tempted him, right? Evil has tempted him. Let's see what he does, the young guy. And on he ran. He had no thought to tarry. Came to the town, found an apothecary. Now, by the way, an apothecary is a person who sells drugs. Today we call him a pharmacist. But back then, they were herbalists as well, not just toxic chemicals, which are mostly drugs today. But basically back then, you would make herbal remedies to heal people, and a lot of them worked extremely well. But an herbalist also knew poisons. They knew about poisons. So he goes to this apothecary. Came to the town, found an apothecary, and said, sell me some poison, if you will. I have a lot of rats I want to kill. And there's a polecat, too, about my yard that takes my chickens and it hits me hard. But I'll get even, as is only right, with vermin that destroys a man by night. So he tells the apothecary, I want poison because I want to poison some rats that are in my yard, and there's a cat that keeps eating my chickens, and I want to kill the cat. The chemist, which is the apothecary, today known as a pharmacist, the chemist answered, I have a preparation which you shall have, and by my soul's salvation, if any living creature eat or drink a mouthful ere he has the time to think, though he took less than makes a grain of wheat, you'll see him fall down, dying at your feet. Yes, die he must, and in so short a while, you'd hardly have the time to walk a mile. The poison is so strong, you understand. So he's going to sell him a nice poison. This cursed fellow grabbed into his hand the box of poison, and away he ran into a neighboring street and found a man who lent him 3 large bottles. he withdrew and deftly poured the poison into two. He kept the third one clean, as well he might, for his own drink, meaning to work all night, stacking the gold and carrying it away. And when this rioter, this devil's clay, had filled his bottles up with wine, all three back to rejoin his comrades sauntered he. Now, so he takes got three bottles. One bottle he leaves, with just regular wine. The other two, he puts the poison in it. So he's going to poison his friends. Why make a sermon of it? Why waste breath? Exactly in the way they'd planned his death, they fell on him and slew him when the young one gets back. 2-1. Then said the first of them, when this was done, now for a drink. Sit down and let's be merry, for later on there'll be the corpse to bury. And as it happened, reaching for a sup, he took a bottle full of poison up and drank, and his companion, nothing loth, drank from it also, and they perished both. There is in Avicenna's long relation concerning poison and its operation, trust me, no ghastlier section to transcend. With these two wretches suffered at their end. Thus these two murderers received their due, and so did the treacherous young poisoner too. Now hold it right there. I love that story. So the young guy comes, they stab him, they kill him, and then they go and they say, oh, let's take a rest and drink some wine. They pick up the bottle, the bottles that are poison, and they drink it and they both die. All three of them die. How ironic, right? And irony is when something happens that you don't really expect, right? Nobody really expected all three to die. And I expected them to, find some ghost or something when I first read it. But now, when I read this, I say to myself, did they find death? Yes, they did. And what did they find it in the form of? Gold. Greed, right? They found it in the form of the gold. The gold caused them to be greedy, which then caused them to kill one another. So they said, we're going to find death. Yes, they did. But they didn't kill death. Death killed them, right? And notice in this story we have personification of fortune, the fiend, the devil, and death itself. Now, the old man is something interesting. A lot of students have said to me, I think he was the devil, or I think he was an angel, or I think he was God, or I think he was Jesus disguised. Well, he's some sort of supernatural person because he can't seem to die, and he knew what was under the trees, and he knew that it would cause them to find death. So I think he was death. I think he's a personification of death, but you can think whatever you want because you might feel differently, and that's okay. Now, so he tells the story, right? And the whole point of it is not to be greedy, because if you're greedy, you'll wind up dead like the three rioters, right? That's what he's saying, this pardoner. He's telling the story. Now, at the end here, I'm just going to finish it. He's telling his friends there who are, fellow pilgrims, who are listening to the story. He says, O cursed sin, O blackguardly excess, O treacherous homicide, O wickedness, O gluttony that lusted on and diced. Dearly beloved, God forgive your sin, and keep you from the vice of avarice. My holy pardon frees you all of this, provided that you make the right approaches, that is with sterling rings or silver brooches. Bow down your heads under this holy bowl. A bull is a document, by the way, like a document from the Pope. Come on, you women, offer up your wool. I'll write your name into my ledger, too. Into the bliss of heaven you shall go, for I'll absolve you by my holy power. You that make offering clean as at the hour when you were born, that is, sirs, I now preach. And Jesus Christ, soul's healer, aye, the leech of every soul, grant pardon and relieve you of sin, for that is best. I won't deceive you. Now, let me just say something here. Here he is asking, he's done with the story, right? Now, in the beginning of the story, he tells everybody that he's a crook, okay, and that he just wants money, and that he just tells stories so people will give him money. And then when he's done, he asks them for money. He says, come up, I'll pardon your sins. It's like a guy telling you, I'm a crook, by the way, and, this thing I'm selling is garbage, but, I'd like you to buy it anyway. That's what he's telling them, right? And they get annoyed. Now, he also says this, one thing I should have mentioned in my tale, dear people, I've some relics in my bail, and pardons, too, as full and fine, I hope, as any in England given me by the Pope. If there be one among you that is willing to have my absolution for a shilling, devoutly given, come, and do not harden your hearts, but kneel in humbleness for pardon, or else receive my pardon as we go. You can renew it every town or so, always provided that you still renew each time and in good money what is due. It is an hour to you to have found, it is an honor to you to have found a partner with his credentials sound, who can absolve you as you play the spur in any accident that may occur. For instance, we are all at fortune's beck. Your horse may throw you down and break your neck. What a security it is to all to have me here among you and at call, with pardon for the lowly and the great, when soul leaves body for the future state. And I advise our host here to begin, the most enveloped of you all in sin. Come forward, host. You shall be the first to pay, and kiss my holy relics right away. Only a groat, come on, unbuckle your purse. Now, the host is the guy that like starts the contest. They have they're telling stories on the way to this pilgrimage, and the one that tells the best story gets a free meal. And this guy called the host, because he owns like a restaurant, hotel, he's going to give the free meal, so they call him a host. But anyway, at the end of the story, he mentions relics, and he's telling them to kiss the relics and everything, and bring up the money. And the host gets really annoyed, but that's, it's not really in this document. It's in another document. If you read the whole thing, this isn't the whole thing. This is just a piece of it. But anyway, relics, by the way, I just want to explain that. A relic is in the Catholic religion, in the Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, Coptic. Basically, saints are revered, and a saint is a holy person. And when they die, they will take pieces of the saint, bones, hair, flesh, clothes, and they'll put them in beautiful cases and whatnot. And they will look at those things and pray to the saint and ask the saint to help them, and think kindly of the saint. So it's like a memento. It's like if someone in your family died and you kept their watch or you kept their hat. That's what it's really like. That's what a relic is. But in this case, it's actually pieces of their body, and of course their belongings as well. So anyway, he has these relics. Now the thing that's interesting is that they're fake relics. They're fake. They're not really relics of saints. They're relics of pig bones and horse bones and all that. So he's making a mockery of the relics. But they're all real relics, of course. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. It's a wonderful story. I'll put this document up so you can look at it and read through it. It's from a textbook, and it's pretty good. But it's a great story. The theme of the story, really quickly, is simply to not be greedy, right? That greed destroys, greed kills. Like it says here, radix malorum est cupiditas. The love of money is the root of all evil. And the love of money caused those three rioters to kill each other. Okay? And that's it. Have a great day. See you next time.